Hi everyone, this is Teresa from Base 10 Montessori, and today I want to talk about the development of the hand. And the reason why this subject is so important is that the hand is the connection to the mind, right? The hand is the instrument of the mind. That is what Montessori said in her book, The Absorbent Mind. And if you think about it, it's really true even in this modern age. Our hand has to connect to our mind. And not only that, we have to develop the hand for writing. We have to develop the hand for working. And when we do that, that only improves our ability to connect what we're doing with our mind. And that helps us grow in so many different ways. Now, in the Montessori classroom, we give a lot of different lessons specifically for the development of the hand. And I am going to get into a series on this later this year after I do Math Group 4. So for those of you waiting for the math lessons, don't worry, those come first. And then after that, I want to do a series on the development of the hand, and I want to focus on the lessons that we give in the classroom for sewing and also for the metal insets. But today's video, I'm not going to talk about the lessons that we do in the classroom. Today, I want to talk about the prepared adult. Because if you're not comfortable sewing, it's really difficult to teach that to your students. And I have taught sewing all the way down to toddler age. And in my AMI Montessori toddler classroom, we taught sewing with a regular metal needle. It wasn't super sharp, but we used all real materials, even with the toddler room, to sew. And so I want you to incorporate this skill for two reasons. One, if you're going through AMI training or you want to go through AMI training, you're going to have to do some sewing. At least that's what they said when I went through training, and it was true then. And they still really encourage that. And my trainer said that even if you've never sewn before, you are going to sew your handmade materials for this training. And so for some of you, you're looking at this and thinking, yes, I love this. This is exactly the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. And for others of you, you're going to hate it. You've never sewn before. You've never even picked up a needle before. But if you go through training, they're going to expect you to do some handmade materials and to do some sewing. So I want to focus on this skill for the prepared adult. One, because it helps you if you're going through training. And two, it is very important that you learn to be comfortable with this enough that you can offer it to your students. And now today, what I'm going to be showing you is obviously more complex than what we're going to be doing in the primary environment. But I'm going to show you a series of materials to help you get started and practice some stitches. Don't worry, they're not going to be this complicated. We're going to start out very simply. But I want you to feel comfortable with the skill, maybe get a new skill, and also prepare yourself for training if you're interested in AMI training. Now, with that being said, in my AMI training, I had to sew a drawstring bag, and I found a video tutorial that I absolutely loved that I'm going to share with you. It's on YouTube. So I am going to share a link if you do like to sew or if you need to sew for training. I'm going to share that link that I found that works really well for making a double-sided drawstring bag. With that in mind, let's talk about sewing and getting those skills. Now, if you're already inclined to doing crafts, this may come easily. These are some of the projects that I am working on or have worked on. This is one that I finished a while ago, and to finish it off, I simply did a running stitch and pulled it. I didn't do anything fancier than that, and you're going to see on the bottom side, it's pretty messy. And usually we hide that, but if it's just for around the house, I don't really care. I'm perfectly happy with it being finished just like that. But as you can see, there are a lot of different types of embroidery that you can do. And when it comes to the Montessori environment, you want to start out very simply. So this is a little complex, but I just want to show you what it is that you can look forward to making if you get really into the skill or if you're interested in the skill. But today, let's take a look at where we can start with making the skill. And I've got a few different kits to show you today. And I do intend to show you one of the kits, and we're going to work through it together. So that way, if you're interested in buying it and working on this, it's a very easy kit to start with, and it's very affordable. And also, it would be very easy if you have your own materials, your own fabric. It would be very easy for you to kind of draw the one that I'm going to show you today and make one up yourself if you have those materials available. Otherwise, if you want to order one, I tried to pick ones that were very cheap, but I'm also going to show you ones that are a little more expensive, because if you're the type of person that's really inclined to do this, if this is something that really appeals to you, I'm going to show you a couple of more complicated kits that may be something that you're interested in. But for the rest of us, we're going to start simple. Let's start with this first kit that I'm going to show you, and this is a more expensive kit and a more complex kit, so this would be something if you're already a little bit experienced, or if you're really motivated to learn this skill and you know that you have the capability to accomplish this skill. This is a kit that I think is really beautiful. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, but I'm also going to show you the manual to it, because I think the manual is really nice, and also it has a QR code for YouTube videos on how to do everything too. So if you're a go-getter and you want to do this, I think this is a really beautiful kit. I'm going to put all of the kits that I show you today down below in the comment section with my Amazon affiliate link. So that way, if you want to get them, they're just right there and easily accessible. So let's take a look at this first one. I'm going to show you 4 different kits, and then we're going to start working on one of them that you can order if you want, or you can make one up at home that's similar to it. So this comes in a really beautiful box. And when you open it, I love the color palette personally. Here's all the threads you're going to need for this. And they have the canvas fabric right here, a hoop, all your supplies that you're going to need, a threader, a seam ripper, and these little holes that you punch out will hold your thread that you're working on. And here's what the projects look like. And I think these are really pretty personally. So you're going to do a stitch sampler of all of them and show little stitch samplers, and then they have a project for you to work on using those stitches. But let's look at the manual real quick for this. As you can see right here, you can just take your phone, scan it, and it's going to take you to the YouTube channel to show you all these different things. And they also have real pictures in here, so I find that really helpful. So I think that this is a lovely way to start. It's a lovely kit. I think it was about $25, so not terribly priced for what you get for it. I think it's a good quality one. And as you can see, it's going to tell you which stitch goes where. And it's going to tell you how many strands, like 3 strands, 2 strands. And so when I go to show you when we work through our first sampler together, I'm going to show you how this goes. So if this seems overwhelming, don't worry. This is complicated. We're going to simplify it. But I just want to put that out there for the people who want something a little bit more complicated to start with and want to take a look at this. So here is this project. And something to keep in mind when you start working on embroidery, if this is something that interests you, make sure that they have the patterns stamped on the fabric. I've had some where you have to iron on the pattern, and that really annoys me. I want something that's just ready to go. So that's what that kit looks like, and I think it's really a nice kit. So I'll put the link for that down below if you like the looks of it. So here I have a second kit. It's a few dollars cheaper, and I don't think that I saw that it has that YouTube channel, although let me take a look at the back here. I think that's just an order form. So I don't think that that goes to a tutorial. But I think the instructions are still pretty decent. They have real pictures. That's not always the case with every kit. And you'll see that a lot of them have diagrams that are drawn, but this one seems to have a fair amount of real pictures in here that show you how to do all the different stitches. And this is just an overview of what each piece of fabric looks like, because there are 4 different ones in this kit. So you have this little bag with everything you need to get started. You have a wooden hoop. Here are your different fabrics, all printed. So that's a lot of work, right? These are a lot of work for the first timer, but I know there are some of you out there who are inclined for this type of work. So if this appeals to you, those are a couple kits that I think are a good way to start, and I'll put links to those down below. This is one that I think I'm going to start in September so that I can have it ready to go up on my wall in October. And it's a nice little stitch sampler, but it's in the shape of a pumpkin. And it looks like this hoop is plastic. It's not my favorite. Don't love the plastic. I much prefer the wooden hoops, but it is what it is. I think this one only cost about $3. So I was a little nervous when I ordered this because I thought for $3, what am I getting? But they seem to have everything here. And right here in the corner, it says scan QR code to get your tutorial. Now I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know if it's helpful. But this is one I would like to start in September. And if I do start this in September, I will try to record some of it so that you can see some of the stitches. That way, if you want to order this and work along with me, my goal is to try and do that. We'll see how well my camera works with me on getting up close with these stitches. And I haven't done this before with my phone, so I'm not quite sure how clumsy I'm going to be with recording this. But let's just see how it goes. We'll see how this first one goes, and then we can go from there. So it has a lot of different stitches that you need to learn for that, which is great if you're trying to do a stitch sampler and trying to learn a lot. It's still a little bit, maybe a little bit overwhelming for the first timer. So again, we have one more to look at, and we have one more that we're going to start after this that's much simpler. But for $3, I thought this is pretty good. You do have hand-drawn or digitally drawn instructions on this side and over here. So you've got your instructions right there, and apparently it does have a QR code. I haven't checked it out yet. So if I do this one in September and you want to do this one along with me, I will have checked it out by then and we can look at that together. But I thought this was really cute. I love fall. It's my favorite time of year. So I went a little bit crazy on my wish list with my embroidery, and I just put like a ton of Halloween and fall embroidery patterns on my wish list. And I went a little crazy, but this one's only $3 and I thought that was kind of nice. And here you go. You've got your needles and your threads. So if this is one that you're interested in doing, I will put a link to it down below and we can hopefully work through this together. And last but not least is the one I want to start with. And it's simple enough that if you have some fabric at home and you have a pencil and you want to draw this out on your fabric and you don't want to spend any money, if you have enough stuff sitting around, this is going to be simple enough for you to make at home. And that's what I like about it. But I think this one was only about $5. So it's not terrible to buy this on Amazon either. So it's not a horrible price. And it gets you enough stitches to start understanding the basics. And when it comes to giving embroidery lessons in our Montessori classroom, this is a great place to start. Something very simple. Just give them a little idea of how to do this. Now, in my primary classroom, we've done just the regular outline stitch or running stitch. I've done the back stitch in my primary classroom. And I have done the lazy daisy stitch, which was very difficult. I thought maybe the back stitch would be harder, but my students really had a hard time with the lazy daisy stitch. So I would say that's a little complicated for primary. But if you're going more into elementary, obviously they're going to be able to fill this out more and more as they go along. And in fact, when I was teaching primary a few years ago, I had all the kids trace their hands onto a piece of fabric, and the students that I knew could handle it outlined their hand by sewing it. The ones that couldn't handle it, we just stamped it in paint. But the ones that could sew and were motivated, they did just a regular outline stitch around their hand. So there are small things like that that you can start in your classroom when you're building the skills. And if you're wondering whether or not to do sewing or do something like a latch hook or a punch needle, I am going to encourage you to do more sewing. And the reason why is because the needle is very small. And when it's very small, you have to use that pincer grip. There's no other choice. When you're using a punch needle or a latch hook, you can really still fit your whole hand around it. And that's not really developing the hand for writing. In primary, we really focus on everything geared towards this pincer grip. And when you have something as small as a needle, you don't have much of a choice but to use this pincer grip. And that's one of the reasons why sewing is so important. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to develop the hand specifically for writing, more so than maybe other crafts do. So that's where we're going to start today. And at this point, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to switch over to just starting the outline stitch and the back stitch. All right, so let's take this out and see what we can do with it. So right here we have our hoop. We have to open that up. Loosen the screws here. I don't like plastic hoops. I really wish it had been wooden, but a lot of the stuff on Amazon seems to be plastic. Okay, so our thread is already organized for us, so that's pretty nice. That'll help us move through this a little more quickly. The first thing we need to do is to put our fabric on our hoop. I'm trying to line this up just right. Today we're just working on the outline stitch and the back stitch. So that just fits in there like that. Make sure it's in there good. And I think it's lined up decent enough that we can screw this tight. This will keep the fabric taut, keep it from slipping. So there we go. There's that part. And so right here we have the instructions. We have a picture of it on this side of everything that we need to do. And then when we get to right here, it's going to tell us about dividing the thread. Now, when we work with embroidery thread, we don't always work with one big chunk of thread at a time. Most of the time, you're going to be dividing this up and you're going to be working with just a portion of the thread. And in each section of thread, there are actually 6 different threads joined together. So your instructions are going to tell you how many threads you're going to be working on at one time. Right here, it's very small. This is the outline stitch that we're going to start with. So we're going to come up with 1 and back down in with 2. Up with 3, down with 4. So we're just going to go a regular up and down, up and down. So let's move back to this side. Now right here it says the outline stitch, and right here it says 1 strand. So we're only going to work with 1 strand, which isn't very much, and they're going to have you outline the words, but I'm going to wait on that because that can be a little tricky. We're just going to do the line today. So if you're following along at home, if you have this exact same kit, or if you're drawing your own pattern, if you're drawing your own lines on a piece of fabric and doing this with me, this is going to be very simple. We're just going to do this line right here. We're not going to outline the words. And as you can see right here, this says 1 strand outline stitch. And for some reason, they've put French knots in there. I don't know if we'll do that today. We'll wait until we get down to the French knot section before we do anything like that. So they show that in blue, so we can get our blue out. So here I have the blue, and I have 2 strands of it, so we can put 1 aside and we'll work with that one later. Now, as we look at the instructions here, like I said, it says 1 strand. And so we are going to section out 1 strand. Hopefully my camera does a good job of focusing in on this. This can be the really tedious part where it's easy to get knots, so you really have to go slow and divide this up. So right here, I have 1 strand, if you can see it. So we are going to, if I can get my camera to focus on this, we're going to untangle that. And we got to go slow and let it unwind as we go along. All right, now I have the leftover thread right here and the thread we're going to be working with right here. On this kit, the needles are taped to the cardboard, so we just have to grab a needle and then we can thread it. Now for regular sewing, we would match the ends together, but for embroidery, we're just going to have a little bit hang over. We're really just working with the one thread. We're not matching the ends and tying a knot as we would for typical sewing. And you can tie a knot at the end of your thread to keep it from pulling through. I normally don't do that. I just leave it hanging. That's just because with cross stitch, when I was doing cross stitching, I never tied a knot. You just leave it loose. So I do that most of the time with embroidery. However, there are times when I find a knot is helpful, especially with French knots. I usually put a knot in. So that's up to you. If it helps you keep your strand in place, it's perfectly fine to put a knot. Just make sure you are not joining the two pieces together. You're just putting a knot in this very end of one strand. So with that being said, let's start right here with our outline stitch. And this will be a little complicated for me because I'll be looking at my camera and at my stitching at the same time. So hopefully I can coordinate the two together. So for our first stitch, we're coming up through the bottom. We're going to pull. Let me show you what it looks like on the back. And I'm just going to hold it right there. I'm not going to knot it, but if you want to put a knot in, that's fine. I'm just going to hold it. So we came up with one, down with two. Now with this outline stitch, we're going to keep them close together. We want to make sure and not come up through the same hole and undo our stitch, but you want to move just enough forward that you can create your next stitch. And you see how I'm doing this pincer grip already? You have really no choice, and that's what I like about sewing. This blue doesn't have a lot of contrast to the blue line, so hopefully this is easy enough for you to see. Let me tilt it a little. So up with one. And down with the next. So there's not a whole lot of space. And this is a good lesson right here, because sometimes when you have these long threads, it's going to knot up. So you do have to check from time to time and unknot them. And the thinner your string is, the easier for this knot to come about. So you do have to be a little bit careful with this thin string. It's going to knot very easily. And what I like to do, and this string is a little long for me to show you at the moment, is I just drop my thread down once in a while and let it unwind, because it will get twisted a little bit as you go through your sewing, and that will cause some problems. So occasionally you just have to untwist the thread. All right. So here we are on our next one. Let me move this so you can see a little better. All right, so I'm just going to finish this up. Okay, so here we are finishing up the outline stitch. Here's my last one. I'm going to take another knot out. And last one. Let's take a look at the back. That's what the back looks like. And you can just cut it with some extra strands. However, if you want, you can also weave in a little bit of the extra so it's not hanging out and getting caught on other threads as you go along. So you can give it a little bit of length. You can also tie a knot if you want. I'm just used to tucking them in. It's a little bit more smooth on the back when you do that. And then you can cut it. So now we're going to do the back stitch. I'm going to show you how to do that one. And it looks like that one is a pink, and it says right here that it is one strand. So again, we're going to get out our thread and piece out one thread. Looks like I just have one strand of this lighter pink. Again, just like before, we have to be real careful. Find our one little thread here. There's one. It's pieced out. And you just have to go really slowly, let it unwind. Otherwise, you're going to get knots in it. And this is something, if you're working on this idea in the classroom, it's good to help them separate their strands. Teaching them how to do this, if they're in the primary age group, it's a bit much. If it's elementary, they might start getting the skill. For primary, I still separate it out for them because these knots, they happen really easily, even just for me. So you have to go really slow and be really careful and have a good feel for this before you start inviting the students to try this. It's easy to get knots when you're unraveling. And sometimes you'll notice with different threads, sometimes they get bound together very haphazardly, and sometimes there are knots in the thread that come from the manufacturer, and that can be really frustrating to deal with. Okay, set the extra pink aside. Let's thread our needle, and then I'll show you what the instructions look like for the back stitch. Again, we're not matching the ends of the threads together like with normal sewing. We're going to leave it free, but feel free to put a knot in if it's helping you. And let's take a look at those instructions. Let me see if I can get a good angle that doesn't have a glare on it. So for the back stitch, we're going to start towards the end of it. We're going to come up with one, down with two, and then we're going to go backwards. So we're going to go this way. So we're going to come up and go down with two, three goes under, four goes back. If that made absolutely no sense, let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to start with this second to the last circle right here. See that? We're not starting at the very end. Let me show you the back as we go along. You can tie a knot. I'm just going to hold it in place. Now, we started here. Two is going to go right here. So up with one, down with two. So we move forward with two, but then we're going to go backwards. So now three, do you see? We went one, two, and then back with three. We got a little knot on the back. Like I said, that's what happens a lot if you have these single threads. They do knot up really quickly. It doesn't do quite so bad when you have more than one thread. That's why I'm not loving this single thread to start with. I actually think that might be harder. So if you wanted to start with two strands, honestly, I don't think it'll get tangled as much if you wanted to do two strands. If you're at home and you're making this up on your own and you're not using the kit, I would say use more than one strand if you want to. This is going to take me a second to get the knot out. Okay, so we are up with three. Now we're going to go down with four right here. So we went up with 1, down with 2, and then we went backwards, went up with 3, down with 4. And now we're going to keep moving backwards to the next one. Right here. Try to make it so that the shadows don't bother you. Right here. So just to show you, this is why I don't like working with the single thread of strands, and I feel like that isn't a great idea for a starter kit, is because it gets tangled really easy. You won't get these kind of tangles as much with multiple threads. And so one of the things I'm a little bit annoyed with this pattern, with this instruction, is the single strands. Yet it looks like they give you plenty of threads. So I'm not sure why they're having you work with just one strand if there's plenty enough to work with two. Maybe they think it's easier with one strand. I actually think it's more difficult because it gets twisted easier. It's more delicate. It's more fragile when it's one strand. So I'm actually erring on the side of maybe, if you can, doing two strands at once. And honestly, this tangle is so bad I can't get it out without breaking the thread. One of the other things you can do to keep from getting tangles is to make your thread shorter. You don't need to work with this long of a strand for this short of a project. So shortening up the strand will help. But honestly, this is so knotted right here. I'm just going to work with it the way it is, and the tangle's just going to stay. And that's reality sometimes. So doing multiple strands and working with a little bit of a shorter strand should help to keep you from getting knots. But I'm just going to keep working along and ignore that knot and just let it be, because I have more than enough thread to finish my project, so I'm not too worried. So let's just keep going. Right here. And we're going to move to the next one right there. Right there. And last one. So let's turn it over and look at the back. You can see I have my nice messy knot right there that I couldn't get out, and we're just going to leave that. We've got more than enough thread to just not spend our time working on that. And as you can see, the difference between just the outline stitch and the back stitch, that's what it looks like on the back. That's the difference that it makes. And then I like to finish this off with just weaving it in a couple times and then cutting. I don't really find it's necessary to make a knot usually, but sometimes it does come in handy. I just weave it in and then I cut it. So that's all we're doing today. We just did that beginning outline stitch and a back stitch. These are two things I work on in primary. Those are the two stitches I really work on in primary. And it's really easy just to get a piece of fabric and draw a line and show them how to do it, right? You can get a fabric marker and write outline stitch, back stitch. And so you can make your own pretty easily. Next video I'm going to do the chain stitch, which I don't use very often. It's not a very common stitch that I've used in my embroidery so far, but I did use it on my bicycle embroidery, and let me show you that real quick. So on the next video, when we do the chain stitch, I'll try to bring this back out, and you can see that chain stitch right there makes your embroidery look like a chain, so it's kind of cool. So that's what we'll do in our next video. And I will be sure to clip out these 2 stitches that we just did, the outline stitch and the back stitch. I'll clip this video out and have it as a separate video as well. But I wanted to show you these 2 stitches as part of the original video, and I'll clip it out for another video, and then I'll make another video doing the chain stitch. And we're just going to go over each skill one at a time for each video. So that's all I have for you today. If you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.